Okay, let's do this. Sheets and Fingers presents, drum roll, Capitalism is Socialism. Yes, capitalism is socialism. You know, it's really irritating because people throw all these words around. Socialism, capitalism, fascism, communism, Nazi. They have no idea what these words mean. None whatsoever. Socialism. Public and private ownership, or public ownership and public control of the means of production. That's what they'll say about socialism. That's the same thing they say the communism is. They have no idea what these words mean. They just throw them around. They call people a fascist, a Nazi today. It's just anybody that's not me is a fascist. Essentially what it boils down to. But no, these words have meanings. Let's go to the basics now. For all you people in the back. Okay? For a society to exist, you have to provide three things. You have to provide water, H2O, calories, and shelter. For most of human history, the shelter's been clothing. That's how you get a society. You have to provide for these three things or people can't survive. Societies are founded on economies. Economies are about acquiring these things. So it comes down to who owns and controls the means of production. That is what economies are founded on, and that's what societies are founded on. Economies are founded on who owns and controls the means of production. Societies are founded on economies. Okay, now in order to set up a spectrum or a dichotomy, you have to have opposites. You have to have polar opposites. You have to have the ability to compare one thing to another. Okay? So at the top level, you have to have something that's abstract. And then underneath of the abstraction, you have to have some concretions in order to create categories of things to do a proper comparison. So for those who don't know what an abstraction is or a concretion is, think of animal, dog, and Jack Russell Terrier. Okay? An animal is abstract. It's more abstract than dog because an animal could be anything. It could be any other animal. It could be an elephant, what have you. Dog is more concrete than animal because obviously you've limited now. You've gone from something that's general to something that's more specific. And then a concretion under dog is going to be Jack Russell Terrier because now you have a fixed element that can't change. So as you go up the abstraction hierarchy, things become more general. As you go down the abstraction hierarchy, things become more concrete. Okay, you have to have the top level of any spectrum, you have to have abstractions. It is absolutely a requirement. So here we have our abstractions. Socialism. What is socialism? It's social. What is social? Social is people. Groups of people is social. And then the opposite of groups of people is one person, an individual. See how we have a proper dichotomy? We have polar opposites, you know, in, out, up, down, on, off, left, right. These are polar opposites. So then we have to ask ourselves, what is socialism? What is the definition of socialism? It's very simple. The consumer is not the producer. That's all socialism is. There's no moral context. It's simply the consumer is not the producer. So when we look at individualism, it's the exact opposite. The consumer is the producer. If you need an example, under socialism, he who eats the tomato did not grow the tomato. That's socialism. Individualism, he who eats the tomato grew the tomato. We have our abstractions. We have our dichotomy. We have our polar opposites. This is how stuff works. So now the rubber meets the road. We're going to use a left-right dichotomy because that's what we've inherited. It could have been up and down, but it's left and right. So on the right, we have individualism. Remember, the consumer is the producer. On the left, we have socialism. The consumer is not the producer. And lo and behold, we have three concretions under socialism. We don't have any concretions under individualism because this is necessarily agrarian. Remember, you have water, calories, shelter. Whatever you consume, you have to be able to produce. So the knowledge base on the right is not that big, and it's very limited. I mean, you're looking at water, veggies, chickens, eggs, maybe. You're not going to be getting much more than that because each family is its own independent unit, and each family can only consume what has the knowledge to produce. This is the right. The beauty of the right is the redundancy because you have all these people are independent units and they're all self-reliant. They don't communicate with each other. Now you have socialism on the left. Okay, we're going to dispense with individualism for now because nowhere in the West do we have individualism. The West is entirely comprised of socialism. If you live in America, if you live anywhere in the West, congratulations, you are a socialist. There's no getting around it. Unclench your intestines. There's no moral context to this. Like I said, socialism is the owner, the consumer is not the producer. That's all it is. No moral context. The moral context comes from the concretions. When human beings interact with each other, this is how we determine what's good and what's bad. Okay, so socialism is the left. You can dispense with left now because now this left is irrelevant because now we're all socialists. If you're on the right, you're a capitalist. Capitalism is on the right. Fascism is the center. Communism is the left. We'll return to this because I want to talk about how we move, what happens when we move from right to left. But here are our means of production. Just like I said before, a society is founded on who owns and controls the means of production. So here we are. This is socialism. On the right, we have capitalism. The means of production are privately owned and privately controlled. Now, in order to get a different category, something has to carry over and something doesn't carry over. So what carries over is private owned. Under fascism, the means of production are privately owned, but they're publicly controlled. See the differentiation between capitalism and fascism? And then now communism, to move to the left, we have to carry something over. So what we carry over is publicly controlled. And then it's publicly owned. So these are our different concretions under socialism. Capitalism on the right, fascism in the center, communism on the left. This is it. Right, center, left. You move to the left, more guns. The more you move to the left, the greater the monopoly of power, the greater monopoly on force, the more the public owns the guns and the private sector doesn't have any guns. Okay, so if you're for gun control and you're a fascist or a communist, then you're for the government having an increasingly bigger monopoly on guns. Also, a big thing about fascism. How do you get from capitalism to fascism? It's real simple. There's one component, the minimum wage. If you're for the minimum wage, you are a fascist. You are for the government pointing guns at private businesses, forcing them to pay their employees what wage you think they deserve. You're forcing businesses to dole out a fixed expense. Their income is not fixed. Businesses have different income every month, but the payroll is the same every month. So you have imposed a fixed cost on a business that does not have a fixed income. That's called controlling the business. The government is controlling the business. So if you are for businesses being privately, the means of production being privately owned, but publicly controlled with guns, you are a fascist. So if you're for the minimum wage, congratulations, not only are you a socialist, but you're also a fascist. Now, we don't want to knock socialism. We don't. This is Cold War bullshit, that socialism is bad. Socialism is good. It's the concretions that can be bad. For example, Nazism, which I'm going to get to in a later video, is between fascism and communism, is where Nazism lies. Nazism is not fascism, and fascism is not Nazism. Nazism falls in between these two. The beauty of socialism is you get specialization. Because where we had individualism, you had redundancy. Because if this family goes down, these two families are okay. You're never going to get specialization with individualism because your knowledge base is as far as you can carry your production. With socialism, we get specialization where individual people are doing things that you can't do, and then within the economy, you require a means of exchange to get the things that you can't produce, but somebody else does. That's the beauty of socialism. So in closing, capitalism is socialism. Socialism is an abstraction. The consumer is not the producer. If you're a capitalist, I guarantee you that there's not a thing in your house, with a very rare exception, that you produced, that you consume it. Okay, capitalism, fascism, and communism come down to who owns and controls the means of production. It's just that simple. Capitalism is socialism. And again, if you're for pointing guns at businesses, telling them what they have to pay their employees, then congratulations, you are a fascist. So stop calling people fascists. Stop being stupid. Grow up, read, learn something, figure these things out. All right. That's it.